abolitionist, and by the time of his death in London in 1797, calls for abolition were gaining momentum on both sides of the Atlantic in Europe and the Americas. It was a very public debate, as these illustrations in British publications from the 1790s show. These images seemingly trivialize true accounts of how slaves were tortured. In this caricature, a slave described as work-shy is put in a tub of scalding water. This picture depicts a world in which the black man would have the whip hand over the white race if the abolitionists won the argument. The advocates for abolition argued that if there were no buyers, then the transatlantic slave trade would immediately cease to exist, whereas the slavers insisted that it was the regular supply of slaves from Africa that sustained the external demand for them. And so, according to this argument, the Africans themselves were to blame for the persistence of the slave trade.
If you say that it apportions the blame to the Africans, then my question would be, what portion do you attribute to the Europeans who opened the forts along the African coast? Those forts, basically, they not only store gold, diamonds, and ivory, they were there to acquire enslaved Africans. So the notion that somehow that there was this reservoir of Africans waiting to be shipped doesn't hold water, because there was a demand in the New World.
Professor Ezra Allen also says there were economic reasons behind abolition as nations began to industrialize.
There was a transition from mercantile capitalism to industrial capitalism. And for the industrial capitalism to succeed, there was a need for raw material. Amongst the raw material was palm oil, produced from the oil palm tree. Palm oil was shipped to Europe. It was used as lubricant for the industrial machines. Since the tropical materials could be acquired in West Africa, the argument was that keep the slave labor in West Africa. That's one major origin of the abolition. A second origin could be humanitarianism. The emergent notions about democracy, inalienable rights, those combined with some religious sects who began to emphasize that God created all men equally. Now, the debate as to which one of these factors is paramount will continue, but there was a strong consensus that economic motive did help to propel the idea for the abolition of slavery.
So would it be fair to say that humanitarian moral considerations were important, but that wouldn't have been sufficient to see an abolition of the slave trade if there wasn't such a powerful economic imperative?
That's the argument that some historians have made, that the economic motive may have been more powerful, may have been paramount, because let's not forget, the very nations that have been involved, the leaders in the slave trade, Britain, the United States, and other nations, they are the ones now who are making the transition to industrial capitalism, and the need for lubricant to keep the machines running was so important that they decided to end the slave trade and produce the tropical raw material in Africa, ship it to Europe.
Another leading academic in Liberia, Dr. Carl Patrick Burrows, explains that